Behalf of Regina District Education Council, I'd like to welcome Katie Cameron. Katie is going to complete a spotlight on an environmental scientist for us today. So welcome, Katie, and take it away.
Hi, thanks for having me. I was just here a couple weeks ago doing a scholarship presentation, so I'm excited to switch it up a little bit here and do one on environmental careers. So thanks again for having me. A little bit about me. I grew up in Alameda, Saskatchewan, just a really small town here in southeast Saskatchewan. I am a family of 6 and I have 3 other siblings. And both my parents, I just kind of laugh at this because both my parents were teachers and none of us went in to pursue that career. We all had different goals and ideas, and that's totally okay. You don't always have to do what people in your family do. Everyone has their own goals in life. And I knew what I wanted to study in grade 6. I knew in my science classes, it was just always a dream of me. I've always been super passionate about the environment and wildlife. Ever since I was a little girl, Dad and I would spend pretty much all our weekends down by the river, and we'd be fishing and out watching birds and just spent so much of our time outdoors. That's where I knew was my happy place. Here's just a picture of me. I had it in my last presentation. I was banding ducks at my school. Just a little bit about where I went to school. So I obtained a 4-year Bachelor of Science degree with majors in biology and fisheries and wildlife science in Valley City State University. I also played softball, like you guys know in the past video. So I ended up majoring in 2 things while I was there, and it was totally possible. So that's something you can look at too. Just a little bit about my school and something that I think that you should look into when you're applying for schools is what kind of program to look for. So there's, Regina may have a really great nursing program, or Saskatoon might have a great engineer program. I think it's important to do your research of, where might be a good fit for you. So I just knew Valley City would kind of set me up to succeed in this field. I knew with the small school feel and the professors knowing me by name, that's where I would kind of flourish. It was very, very hands-on, and they explained that when I met with, the counselors to pick your classes and stuff. Like we did things like fish and wildlife surveys, banding ducks, and we would go out and do identification skills with birds and plants, and it was really awesome. My favorite study that I did in university, we had to go out every single day and we had to determine the type and density of waterfowl occupying a class 4 semi-permanent wetland. And so I was out there, 3 other guys were in my group, and we would take turns going out there, and I had my binoculars out, and I was determining the type of waterfowl. And I would always call my dad, and just while I was there, and I'd just say, this is the coolest thing. Like I was just so happy, and I knew that's exactly where I was supposed to be. And we would identify, collect, and then we would enter data in a spreadsheet, and then we would report. So this is an example of what I mean about setting me up to succeed is everything that I did in that program related to my job now. So it's just awesome to get those skills to further you into your career. I also just want to touch on summer student things. So in this PowerPoint, I'm kind of saying about my career and giving some tips because I think that's important too. So when you're looking for summer students, it's great to expand your knowledge and try different things. But if you kind of know what you want to do, which I did, I knew I wanted to look for jobs related to my field. I think the more experience you have while you're a summer student is the better. Like it's something you can put on your resume when you're, in my case, I knew I wanted to do environmental, and that was so nice to have on my resume during my undergraduate career, I was doing an environmental job. It's also important, is the experience a fit for you? So while you're in university, I thought it was important for me to have this job, because what if I did do the job and I was like, okay, maybe this isn't kind of what I want to do. It's not too late to switch. It's you're in school for 4 years, so that's a long ways to go if you don't really get experience and know if it's what you want to do. So it's important to have that, and if you do make the switch, you're not too late if it's not meant for you. So I worked 2 summers for Buffalo Head Environmental during my undergraduate degree, and my main job that I did is I worked in an uncontrolled burn project on native prairie pasture. So there was actually a fire that was uncontrolled and it burnt a lot of acres of land. So I had to go out there and I had to collect vegetation data from plots. So we did a controlled area and an uncontrolled area, and we collected grasses, forbs, shrubs, trees, and all the weeds and the density and the cover. And then we compared the disturbed and undisturbed areas and just 8 a.m. preparation if we needed to do any reclamation. And I just knew I would get up at 6 every day. I would head out to my site. It was native pasture, rolling hills. I would rip around on a side-by-side. Like, I just was in heaven. I told my dad, I said, you can't beat this job. Like, it doesn't feel like you're working. So I knew just being outside, we would see moose run by, the birds chirping in the morning. You're all like, it's just, you couldn't beat it. It was just always my dream job. So back to what I said, I just knew that I wanted, like in university, I'm like, is this what I want to do? Like, I knew it before I went in, but sometimes you question yourself because it's a huge life decision. This is your life. I mean, you can always switch, but it's 4 years and a lot of money. So what I'm saying is, being a summer student, I was really happy to get that clarification. So that's something you can kind of look at, is trying to do something in your field for your career while in your undergraduate years. So after I graduated, I actually started full-time with Buffalo Head in December of 2016. It's a privately owned company founded in 2010. We work in the southern Saskatchewan oil and gas industry, and we have offices out of Arcola and Estevan. So this is just it's a local company, and it's just a wonderful crew, and I loved my summer work. And so I've continued to work here since 2016. I was so happy to get on board full time. So my duties, I'm just kind of going to explain what I do, and then I'll talk about other services. So most of my experience with Buffalo Head is I'm on the front end side of things. So I conduct pre-construction site assessments on several well sites and multiple kilometers of full line right away. So what I do is I go out to a site. So I'm just going to play this video here. This is an example. It's kind of windy here, but I'll just show you. So I would go out to an area like this before they put a well site or a flow line, and I would conduct a wildlife, vegetation, soil assessment. I would evaluate the wetlands. I would check the topography, everything you can think of. So I do a complete run through. So what it kind of looks like is I get out to site. I have my pen and my paper and everything I'll talk about next slide, but I jot down everything, and I bring back the data back to the office. So after I bring back the data, I prepare reports, including mitigative measures to be sent to the government regular for approval. So this is just awesome. Like, this is kind of an example of, I always say, my office of where I would work and collect all this data. So I just really, really, really enjoy it. So I just kind of want to talk about other services. I'll go back to more what I do in a few slides, but we also do remediation and reclamation. So that's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, gas migrations, detailed site assessments, groundwater sampling, spill response. There's so much of a wide variety you can do in the environmental field. It's just incredible, and just to be open-minded of what you can all do. So I have equipment you use and spaces you work. So here's another example in the winter. And so it's a 4-season job here in Saskatchewan. It's warm, it's cold. You're working in different areas. So here I just have a picture. I was pipelining to this well site over here. But so I work mostly outdoors. I do go indoors maybe once or twice a week for reporting of what I gathered for data. And we always go there to meet ahead of time, and we get our tasks for the day and, meet with your partners, because a lot of these jobs in my environmental field, you have to have two people. Like, look at the terrain. If you were to fall and hurt yourself, it's always nice to have a partner there. You work in quite the conditions. I work in anywhere from cultivated, tame hay, native pasture, name it, we're there. Equipment I used, camera, measuring tape. So when you're doing these assessments, you have to take many pictures to send to your regulatory governments for approval. A measuring tape you measure the soil, the A horizon, the B horizon. You need a shovel to determine where your A horizon stops and your B horizon starts. A GPS to GPS plants that are sensitive. Drills, because in the winter, like I said, you're working 4 seasons. In the winter, you can't dig with a shovel, so we use a grass drill to get our soil sample depths. A rangefinder to know how far a wetland is from the pipeline, so we have to include that. Books for identification skills. You need lots of food and appropriate clothing. Bear spray, you don't want to leave that out. I've come across quite the stuff being out in the field. I remember one time I was in a canola crop when I was first starting, and it was so high I couldn't see anything, and I was doing a soil sample, and I felt this sniffing on my back of the neck, and there was 2 baby moose right there, and I stood up and I screamed so loud the mom was right behind me. So you have to, not that I would use my bear sprayer then, but you come across tracks that it's just nice to have. But it's just incredible working outside, and that was just, it's so cool, like the 2 little moose and stuff, but you just never know what you're going to come across, so you always got to be alert. The rewards and best part of the job, I'm just going to play this video too here. So like I have in this comment, I probably took this video like 3 years ago working, just saying like, I love what I do. It's my dream job. To me, just sitting on the outskirts of those wetlands, documenting the sedges, the cattails, the grasses, what type of waterfowl are on there, and just being outside, to me, you can't beat it. I like the challenges of the jobs. I know if you watch my presentation, I like challenges. I like how there's so many different types of plants. There's so many different types of bird species. I like it's always there's always something new. You never go to the same site. You're never doing the same thing every day. Every site is just so different. Like I said, you could be in cultivated one day, hayland the next, native pasture. It's always, every habitat is so different. So you're always switching it up. A reward is the health benefits. Our company has great health benefits. So that's always something to look for when you're applying for a job. You can't beat protecting sensitive areas and species, and we're still producing resources in an environmentally friendly way. So I can really appreciate still producing these resources, but in just such a safe way. The amount of work and extent of, getting approvals for stuff, it is really amazing, like the procedure. So it's just awesome to be able to still produce these resources in an environmentally friendly way. Some challenges and stressors I have here, timing and in-season assessments and protocols. So I do a lot of in-season work. So I'm up at 3 in the morning, 3:34, and I head out to site before the birds get up. And that's just an example. You have all these protocols, and the temperature, the wind conditions, and the timing all has to be perfect to do these different surveys. So that can kind of be tough in Saskatchewan. It's windy and conditions aren't always ideal. So that is a stressor and a challenge to fit in those protocols in the certain amount of time you have. I say weather conditions. Sometimes I've done 20-kilometer flow lines and it's -30. That is a challenge in a stressor when you're, it could be 30 above and you have to do a full line, or minus 30. The weather isn't always ideal and the jobs still have to get done, but the company is so good. They're not going to send you out when it's ridiculous, and you'll always have a partner and take lots of breaks. I'm just kind of giving an idea of something that maybe might stress someone out or be a challenge. Identification skills can be a challenge and a stressor. Plants, there are so many plants out there, and it's one thing because you can have a book with you and you can take your time to ID it, but a little grassland bird is going to fly off within seconds, and it can be a very much of a challenge. I say that to my dad, I just have to sit there and I listen for half an hour to an hour, and you try and get all the birds, because that's how I ID is by their sound, because it's very rarely they'll sit for you to get a picture. You can't tell a bird to sit pretty to get a picture for them. So you got to kind of be quick, and that can definitely be a stressor. If I get kind of upset with myself, I have to be more easy on myself though if I can't figure out a bird. But there's always so many resources. You can go back, work with your employees, like take a video and send it to them. It's so important to communicate, because you're not going to be able to know every single thing in your field. It takes years to be an expert. You never are an expert. You're always learning. I just kind of wanted to say there's so many other careers you can go in for environmental. I'm an environmental scientist, but there's environmental engineers, there's wildlife biologists, environmental lawyer, zoologist. You can be a teacher in it, conservative scientist, hydrologist. There's so many different options. So that's pretty amazing that there's so many different careers you can look into with this line of work. And I would say the average is about $50,000 to $70,000 a year for these types of jobs. Professional development. Many employees are encouraged to be regulated by a professional regulatory organization. It's pretty important, and that's what people look for when you're applying for jobs. That'll be one of the requirements you find on a lot of the applications. I work with professional engineers. I work with many different professionals. So there's different things that you can go into, and it's depending on your school. So I wouldn't be able to go for a professional engineer because I went for wildlife biologist. So I applied to be a professional biologist, and I have my professional biologist with Alberta Society Professional Biologist. So that was really important to me, and a goal that I had going into this career. And I actually just got it here March of 2020. So that was awesome, and that's a big step for me. So that's something to look forward or look to go into for your careers. Each regulatory organization has different requirements on obtaining and continuing the program. So for example, mine was you had to have a 4-year undergraduate degree in biology. You had to have 3 years of experience. You had to get references, and you had to do a little quiz thing. And then there's this continuing program that you have to do, and you have to get a certain amount of professional development hours. And ours is 105 for 3 years, so 35 a year. So it's important to look into that. Each professional designation you get is different on how you obtain it and continue on. So make sure you do your research that way. Work-life balance. In my career, I work Monday to Friday, and there is lots of overtime. Before I became a mother, I'm sure that's going to kind of switch. I worked a lot of overtime, and that was kind of my choice. I liked putting in that time and, getting my foot in the door and like showing that I want to work hard. So, but now that I'm a mother, I'm sure I'm not going to be working near as much overtime. But that opportunity is there for eager workers. We are super busy right now, which is awesome. I'm on mat leave right now, but I heard everything's going really good. So we get 3 weeks of holidays, and we get sick days. which is awesome. The company's so great at understanding that everyone has busy lives. We're gonna have appointments come up, eye, dentists, whatever you have to go do, and it's awesome. My boss is really good at coordinating, and if I do have, say that I have a dental appointment in Carlisle, she'll say, okay, well, I have some work in south of Carlisle if you just want to go do this site quick before your appointment. So they're really, really good at working with you. And that's something you look for when you're going to find your job, is ask these questions, or, you know, what what kind of things, like what their goals are, or if they're how their sick days are, or what their holidays are like, or their health benefits, or, you know, important questions to ask. And for work-life balance, just know your limits. And like, now that I'm a mother, I'm obviously not going to be able to work near as much overtime, and I know that, and I want to be home with babies. So, you know, you got to know your how much. I'll work my 40 hours a week and try and maybe do a little bit of overtime. But I just want to mention here, I think it's really important to take, oh, sorry about that. Take your holidays, and I'm really guilty of that. I tend to just work all the time and not take them, but I do think it's so important to take that time. You're given 3 weeks. Take that time. That's a good work-life balance, and that break, and you're always so refreshed when you get back and to work to have that holiday. And I just kind of want to talk more before I do the Q&A, because I didn't really talk about this too much. Back to my duties of kind of what I do. So before we get the site, and like I said, we do flow lines and well sites, battery sites, anything you can name. And we go out to areas like this, and just more in depth of what I do is say that a pipeline's 20 meters by like 20 meters and 5 kilometers long, 20 meters wide and 5 kilometers long. We do multiple walkthroughs, and it takes hours. We look at every single little vegetation, like we have our binoculars looking at nests. You don't just look for birds, you look for nests. So if they are going to disturb this line, you GPS the nest, and then they have to avoid it. Like, it's pretty cool, the stuff. You look for everything. Nest, possible areas that a bird or a wildlife might habitat. You look for everything. Trees. It's just a really extent assessment. So we dig soil samples, like I said. You find your A and B horizons, and you look wetlands, vegetation. If anything is sensitive, it's GPS. And a lot of times, say on a native prairie pasture, the company wouldn't be able to drill or push lease until a certain time, until the birds are gone. There's times where people can push lease and disturb the area. So it's just pretty cool that we're still producing resources, but in a very environmentally friendly way. So I do appreciate about my job. So I just want to stress that. So now I have questions, and this is my dog Ellie here. We were out doing a site, and I called the landowner and I asked him if he was all right. I had to watch my dog for the day, and he said, oh, that's not a problem. So he was out running on the lease and enjoying the job just as much as me. So questions and answers.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much. I think we were both big fans of David Attenborough growing up. And of course, he's a famous biologist and environmentalist out of England. He always said it, one of his quotes, it seems to me that the natural world is the greatest source of excitement, the greatest source of visual beauty, the greatest source of intellectual interest. It is the greatest source of so much in life that makes life worth living. I truly believe this, and I just want to thank you for the job that you do. And I think that sums up a lot, that you're out there to protect certain areas and make sure that things stay healthy with the species, bird species, plant species. And it seems today that there is so much plowing of pasture, trees, And it's a combination of trying to make, the greatest profit off your land, and I get that, but I think we have to find a balance somewhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, but thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Question
Katie.
for you. Is your job public or private? Are you hired by the government or are you hired by private firm?
Private. Yeah, we're a private company.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not government, we're private. So just a small company here in southeast Saskatchewan out of Arcola and Estevan.
Katie, I'm in the Rosetown Kinnersley area. There's lots of oil activity in the south of Rosetown in the Elrose area and lots in the Kinnersley planting area. So there'd be a lot of environmental work going on out this way too, probably because of that.
That's funny you said that, because I was just saying, Michael, my fiance, said he just put southeast Saskatchewan. I said, well, no, I've been out to Rosetown lots. So I've actually been out to Rosetown with my company for 2 weekend stays.
Okay.
And yeah, so not since I had baby and been pregnant, but I've been out there 2 times, I think, for 2 weekends, and I did I want to say 4 or 5 jobs each time I went out. So yeah, there's definitely drilling and stuff going on there.
Yeah. So there's just the question I had: who hires the company? Like a company like yours is a private company, so is it the responsibility of the oil companies to make sure that gets done? They hire these
You
companies?
betcha. Yep, the oil company hires the environmental party.
I
Yep,
see. Okay.
you betcha.
Okay.
Yep. And I can't quite remember the oil company that always is the one out there that always, I don't know if you know. I would probably remember if you
I
said.
think somebody said out by Elrose, I think it's time. Is it Time? Is that a company out there? Time? I'm not really that familiar with all the company names.
Yeah, it's been a few years since I headed out there, but
Yeah, Gibson Energy is another one.
no, that wasn't the one.
Okay.
I want to say it did start with a T, so that might be the one. But yeah, they're responsible for hiring the environmental company to do their work, and then we would send all our stuff off for approval.
Yeah, because I just don't know of anybody in this area that does what you do, which I was quite intrigued by that, because I think there's a lot of young people that sound like they had similar passions to you.
Yeah.
And, now that I don't know too many that have been doing that, and yet there'd be a lot of that activity right around here. But
right. So yeah, we travel. What would that drive be? 8 hours?
Yeah, for you it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have done work out there quite a bit. So had a little weekend stay, and it's beautiful out there. Every site that I did was.
I'm not familiar with anybody around here that does that. So does what you do. So.
Yeah, no, I'm not too sure.
There must be
I don't know that, but yeah, it's beautiful country out there, rolling hills and the leaf. Yeah, you betcha.
Just as a side note, Katie had to show her fiance how to change a tire.
Yeah.
On the side road, but I'd just like to finish.
Katie, we have another question for you here.
Yeah.
Wanting to know tech advancements in this area, like for example, drones. Are you getting into more of that kind of stuff or not really?
Yes. I don't have too much to do with that, so I wish I could tell you more, but my boss of the company uses it a lot to get pictures of, spills in areas of like the reclamation process and everything. So yes, it's definitely becoming a thing in the environmental world. I don't have much to do with that. So I wish I can elaborate on that more, but I can leave some emails here for if you're interested in contacting about that.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah,
but it is incredible how far technology has come and what they can do, to detect a spill and everything. Like the companies have come a long way, and it's a pretty cool thing.
Thank you, Katie. This was an awesome presentation. I just, before we sign off, I just wanted to remind students that if they're watching this presentation, if they wouldn't mind filling out a survey found on our website at www.rdiec. The survey will automatically enter them for a $50 gift card to be drawn at the end of every month. We appreciate the students that complete those surveys because it gives us a little back, it gives us feedback on the presentations and how we can, and not that we need to improve them, but just for feedback for us. So thank you.
Yes, I'd just like to finish with thank you so much, Katie, and I would really like to encourage the students to go to your slide presentation where you talked about the branches that are available to students who go in for an environmental scientist. There are so many other avenues that students can use and find. And I pray that we find a nice balance between the environment and people's jobs moving forward, because the country seems to be in somewhat of a turmoil right now. Thank you again, and all the best moving forward. Thank you.